According to that, we should be on. Is everybody seeing that little icon up there? It says the meeting is now streaming live on YouTube.
Yes.
Okay, are we ready to play? It does appear we have a quorum. So we're going to go on and call the meeting to order. We're going to move on to item 3 or 4 to start this. And since we're not in person, we'll skip those first two and go to item 4, the back to school update. Dr. Whitus, would you like to lead that?
Yes, sir, I would. I have a presentation for us this evening, and it is the big picture look. And I know that any individuals watching may have very specific questions. And so I appreciate everybody's patience. And as this is a definite work in progress, and the specifics will be communicated via our plans that our principals are creating. And so tonight I wanted to just bring all of you up to date and hit some highlights of where we are in our back to school plan for 2020, 2021. So you all know that there was a public health order issued last week. It affects all 12 schools in our area. What I would say about in the actual wording that you see on the screen is taken directly from the order. And we have all realized through this process since March that a lot of the things that are going on, a lot of the decision making is really outside the district's authority. And so it is our job to listen to the guidance, listen to what TEA is telling us, listen to what our local authorities are telling us, and take that, implement it, interpret it, all of that. And so we realize that face-to-face instruction will not happen until after September 7th. We've left our calendar intact. We have intersession the week of the 7th. And so kind of our target date is September 14th for face-to-face back to school instruction. TEA has rewritten the guidance as far as allowing virtual instruction. We have to submit a very comprehensive plan to the agency, and you'll see that on the very last slide in a little bit. We've kind of put that on the back burner for now, and campuses are working on their specific remote plans to communicate to our parents, to our public, how it will look, because it's very different at all 4 campuses. And so at least 2 weeks before reopening, not only do we need to submit our plan to TEA, which is 1 week, but for 2 weeks, we now have to submit it to the Nueces County Health Authority and make it available to parents and the public. So as I said, we've kind of put that on the back burner. I have shared with you all several times that we are working with a group out of Austin to develop that, and that is everything on how face-to-face instruction looks like, all the day-to-day things that our campuses do. Item 4 mentions that extracurricular sports and activities are excluded. And again, we were just talking about the public health order. Did not see any communication from UIL today. We have lots of ideas about what that will look like. We do know that fall sports have been pushed back until September, meaning football, volleyball, but the specifics of that have yet to be communicated. We also know that the order may be renewed or extended by further action if necessary. And you all are probably seeing a lot of schools that are following suit and doing the same thing. And so it's very widespread across Texas. Wanted to talk to you a little bit about 3 aspects of our remote learning plan. And you'll see right below the headline, re-engineer the school experience. Those words are actually from TEA. And when all of this first started and we had that you had to offer face-to-face and remote learning, everything was, but it has to look different than what we did in the spring. And so just wanted to hit some highlights. And again, the purpose of tonight is just the big picture look. And so development of each plans for each campus, that is going on. Parent and staff survey were launched on Friday. Numbers to date look like we've had about 300 total parent responses and about 65 staff responses. Purpose of that is to see where we need to focus our efforts for device deployment, because that also has to look different Every child needs their own device. It's not like the spring where we had one per family sharing some of those kinds of things. And so all of that happened last week. And again, I just want to reiterate, campuses are working on plans. They will be very specific. So, what happens at first grade looks very different than what happens at sixth grade and so on. We did welcome teachers back virtually last week and are doing a lot of front loading on professional development. And so you see the span of dates. And I included that, board members, in your packet information because it's several pages long, and you can look down and scan that list and see everything that we are doing is focused on a successful launch of our remote learning. And I'll share a couple of other things with you all in just a minute. Also, before we finish tonight, I wanted to hit some real broad highlights about some of the learning resources and tools that we are putting in teachers' hands. Bright Thinker is our online curriculum that has been purchased, and I don't want any of us to misconstrue that is child's going to sit down in front of the computer and it's going to cover everything. The teacher is very much in charge of that, is the facilitator. I'll get into more specifics, but I did want to put that out there because I know there are lots of questions, and that is for grades 3 through 12. So then our curriculum coordinator, Ms. Flores, Mr. Romes, teachers at pre-K through second are working on what their instruction looks like. The only other gap, if you go and look at Bright Thinker, is it has electives, very comprehensive. The one missing link is high school Spanish. And so we feel like we can address that in other ways. Wanted to move just a little bit more to professional learning. And like I said, our teachers have been phenomenal the past several days at the table with their leaders, talking about what we need to do, forming this plan in a true partnership. And so just looking back, even before they returned on the 16th, K-5 teachers have been working with Ms. Flores, our curriculum coordinator, talking about training, things that maybe they've not had over the years, getting refreshers. They will also receive effective literacy practice training and guided reading training. We feel like those building that strong foundation. And if you look down this list, you're going to say, well, the first 3 bullets are for pre-K through 5. And we've talked a lot about that solid foundation at those early years. And so guided reading and early literacy, the effective practices will be a very, very important part, whether you're doing remote, no matter what type of learning we are doing. You also will recall, board members, that when you've had a couple of trainings from the Service Center, we've talked about the reading academies. That is an 11-month intensive training that our K through 3 teachers will have starting very, very soon. So all of those things will work in tandem to provide that solid training for our teachers to then turn around and deliver the quality instruction. 7 through 12 teachers will receive training in ClassLink, which is a single sign-on that the district has purchased. Is going to be a great, great resource. And then also Bright Thinker. And so everyone is extremely busy juggling that. We had to go back and change everything to remote once we made the decision on July 1 to alter the calendar. So some of you have seen this language about Bright Thinker, and I like some of the wording. It is a Texas-based company, which I like. And so you can see about the rigorous academic experience. It involves assessments, all of the tools and components that we need. And I'm going to talk in the next 3 slides a little bit more about Bright Thinker and why we feel that it is a great tool and resource to complement what our teachers are doing. And so this is actually from their own website. And so I like the wording that it helps students to be challenged and stay engaged using modern learning tools. It's adaptable, it has an analytics. And so when I think about how we need to help and support principals at the district level to turn around and help and support teachers, we can see logins, we can see analytics, a lot of the data that we need to have, also tracking mastery. And one of the big areas that TEA has told us in your asynchronous plan for remote learning, you have to show student engagement every single day. The last piece of that, you see the word customized features. And so we like that. It is not a, we just turn it on. The teacher has to be very instrumental in guiding that thinking. It can help fill in those learning gaps that we know may exist because of what happened last spring when students left us on March the 13th. A little bit more about Bright Thinker. I've mentioned the professional development already, and they've been a true partner to us already because it happened very, very quickly. And so we want to make sure that every user is confident with the platform, the resources, how to implement everything. If you look under the middle column, virtual learning, you can see the wide array of things, and that ties in and blends in with that customizable piece. It also has options for online and printed materials, and we know that we will probably have some kiddos that will need the print materials. Thinking about our pre-K through second, and again, I really want to brag on everybody that's had a hand in this. We have a lot of tools and resources, so putting those together to make a comprehensive curriculum and then making it remote, we have several things through our own curriculum adoption. And so you see HMH into reading, RAS Plus, and Vision Math, Studies Weekly, and Interactive Science. So that forms a very comprehensive plan for our pre-K through second grade kiddos, and will be a nice complement to 3rd through 12th with what's happening with Bright Thinker. Wanted to point out also, again, working in tandem with this, whether it was remote learning or not, all of this was going on behind the scenes. A lot has happened really this summer as far as putting tools and resources in our teachers' hands. We know where the end goal is as far as our high expectations, quality instruction for kiddos. And so you can see that bulleted list of all the different things that have happened primarily for our little guys. And so aligning the curriculum, phonics resources at grade 3 for the first time, resources for small group instruction and math, and all of those things will happen whether it's remote instruction, face-to-face, all of that. And so you can see those that we've had teachers at the table to help with that. Thinking about systems and structures, because again, it is so much more than just saying, okay, we purchased a curriculum, July 29th, let's launch. There's so many facets to this. And again, I just say thank you to people for being patient because it is extremely time consuming. And so I've already pointed out that the teacher is the facilitator, so please don't lose sight of that. We have a scope and sequence that will guide. So how that works is the scope and sequence will guide instruction. Bright Thinker will merge and fit into that. So there will have to be some tweaking along the way. You know, the downside of starting this time of year with remote instruction is our teachers don't know their kiddos. And so getting to know them will be written into the plan, finding out where we are, starting school, filling in lesson gaps. It's just a lot of things. And so we felt like having the Bright Thinker would give our teachers a leg up and they could focus on the magic of what they do best. We still will require lesson plans, lots of teacher collaboration, and I'll put a plug in. Our administrators are working, communicating, doing all that, being those instructional leaders that we need them to be. Grading guidelines have to be the same for face-to-face as well as remote. And so you can expect those in our back to school plan to be communicated very effectively. Daily engagement, small group instruction, and differentiation. So every learner is at the table and we can provide the very best experience for them. If you look at the bottom, this is our charge from the state to re-engineer the school experience so students reach high academic outcomes with the same or better proficiency in 2021 as they did pre-COVID. And so I am confident with all of this in place, certainly, that we will be very, very successful. All of this is ongoing. There are a lot of next steps. This slide certainly does not do justice to that, but completion of remote learning plans. Those are draft 1 is due on Wednesday. We will sit down individually with principals to review their plans, see what we need very soon. I realize the 29th is right around the corner and this is all moving at a very rapid pace. I've already mentioned survey analysis and device deployment. That will be in there. I fielded several questions today about teachers needing to get resources, teachers needing to get resources for some kiddos. And so all those things in the works, and principals are helping to organize and orchestrate that. Completion of training and teacher preparation. And we have to do all of this remotely and in small groups. And so it's like putting a huge puzzle together. And my instructional team has done an amazing job of orchestrating all of that in a very short amount of time after we had to move everything online. And then we realized that in just a little over a week, the first day of school on July 29th. And so we will be ready. It's going to take every one of us to make this happen successfully, but just wanted to share some of those highlights with you all and kind of let you know what's been happening in London ISD the last couple of days.
All right. Does any board members have any questions for Dr. Whitus regarding the plan she talked about?
Yeah, I have a couple questions.
Go for it.
So I know there's a lot still going on. It sounds like the draft learning plans are going to be coming in Wednesday.
Yes.
So the TEA is requiring 240 minutes per day online activity. And we've talked in our correspondence through the London district about 7 hours.
7 hours was what was initially put out. And so it will be, every campus plan will have a schedule and a roadmap for what parents need to do with kiddos. And so, you know, it's not going to be, it's not realistic to think you're going to sit in the front of the computer for 7 hours. I mean, we wouldn't even be able to do that. And so,
right, yeah. And so I think that may have been some of the concern parents were having is about if it's going to be that. So yeah, it'll be less and the plans will define that, but somewhere
yes,
between the minimum 4 hours essentially
correct.
and what
you know,
works for
all
our
that
kids.
came out, you all realize too that daily new information is coming out. And you know, after the switch and so many schools started moving to online, then the whole guidelines have changed. And I'm not going to lie, it is extremely complicated as far as what we're going to have to report, what we're going to have to do. And we're learning and interpreting on the fly and implementing all at the same time. So.
Okay. And something else, this public health order came out. And so our start of school, well, for us, sounds like any face-to-face will be September 14th, Lord willing, and nothing else changes. But what happens to this this curriculum we've got? It all rolls into the kids being face-to-face. That all gets carried over nicely, or is this Bright Thinker? Is that something that's online only?
No, we're going to have, in my mind, a mixture of both. We are still going to have to go back and survey parents. Do you want your child to return on hopefully the assumed date of September 14th? Do you want to continue remote learning? We suppose that there probably will be some shutdowns throughout the year. And so that natural seamless transition of, okay, we may be at school tomorrow and then shut down for the rest of the week so that we don't have to have a disconnect in our calendar and in learning. We can move back to Bright Thinker. And we may use it in some classrooms so that to provide kids the ongoing, you know, remote learning is new for everybody. And so it's going to be a tool and resource that's ongoing.
Okay, and so they'll likely be some, even if they are lucky enough to be back in class, there'll be some touch base with the Bright Thinker as they go through the
correct
semester. Okay, and another question is really the public health order didn't touch UIL. It sounds like what we're hearing now is nothing in September for UIL activities, and I'm thinking about the big stuff like football. So does that mean that band will also have activities? And if so, when does the band get to start their activities? I know football is having some limited practices. Do we know yet how it's all going to affect other extracurricular?
We don't, unfortunately, Mr. Forno. What we know is that we can still continue strength and conditioning training, and then September 8th, which is that magical date that aligns to starting back face-to-face. Football and volleyball practices have been pushed back then, and there's a lot of supposition of what will competitions look like, on and on and on. It affects everybody from band to cheerleaders to sports to middle school sports. And so we were anticipating something today, and not anything affirmative yet. So
okay, I'll let somebody else take a turn.
Any other questions? Does anybody else have any other questions about the school startup that we know so far? I don't see any. All right, if not, we'll move on to the facility options, phase 2, elementary additions. I think we have Jerry and Javier, maybe Sean standing by to talk to us a little bit about that. I don't know who's going to run that. Are you going to run that, Javier or Jerry?
I just got in. Yes, sir.
All right,
Can you
go
hear me?
for it. Yes, sir.
Okay, good. I just, give me a second. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Can you all see this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So we have been talking with Judy about the different needs for phase 2 at the elementary, and one of the main things that that we need to discuss is capacity for the campus. I'm going to skip on this presentation to the summary, just to kind of give you an overall view of what the options cost. And in options 1, 2A, and 2B, we're talking about a campus that has a capacity of about 136 students. In option 3 and 4, it's a campus that will have an increased capacity of 936 students. The reason for option 3 and 4, it was after discussion with Judy, in that we already have 5 sections per grade level at the elementary campus. And options 1, 2A, and 2B provide only at a maximum at the completion, provide you 5 sections per grade level. So that's why we came up with an option 3 and 4 in order to be able to address that need. But cost is the other issue. How do we get into the different options?
Javier, are you saying that options 1, 2A, and 2B have 4 sections per grade level, and 3 and 4 have 5?
Options, actually, option 1, 2A, and 2B have 5 sections per grade level.
Except pre-K.
Except pre-K, that's correct. And then options 3 and 4 have 6 sections per grade level. So let me go to the top. Option 1 is a campus that would be built all at once, and it would give you a total of 22 additional classrooms for a total of 38 classrooms for the facility. That's a complete option 1. It's 136 students, más o menos capacity. That option 1, the cost that we were looking at last time, it was 11,775,000, which was above our bonding capacity. Option 2A, what we wanted to do is to figure out a way that we can create or get the same campus with the additional 22 classrooms, but do it in phases, add another phase to the construction. Where in option 2A, what we do is we build 10, it's a 2-story facility. We built 10 classrooms plus the library on the ground floor. And I'll explain the variable, another variable there. And then a second floor would be unfinished, but it would be taken to the level where the unfinished construction would be such that, within three months, we could come in and finish it out. So we would basically try to max out the construction. We'll do all the difficult things all the way to a certain point, and then just leave the minimal things that we can come in and do it in a relatively fast time. With that option, what we're looking at is a first floor and a second floor unfinished. We're looking at a project cost of 10,166,000. Okay. This scenario has, in this initial phase, would give us a total of 10 classrooms, 10 additional classrooms. There again, this scenario, we would have to split it into a phase A and a phase B so that we could get the maximum capacity of that campus. In option 2B, what we do is we add 2 additional classrooms in the initial phase by finishing an entire first floor and adding 2 classrooms on the second floor. The rest of it would be unfinished. The cost for this option, option 2B, would be a little bit more than option 2A, but it would give you those 2 additional classrooms. So far, so good? Okay.
Does that include the library finished out?
Okay, so the library. So one of the things that we're going to have to decide is so in option both 2A and 2B, what we can do is initially, instead of building the library, put classrooms, and then once we build the second floor, we would repurpose the ground floor, the 2 classrooms on the ground floor, into a library. Okay, that would be, it's an option. It's an option of whether we want to do the library first and not get the classrooms, or do we need the classrooms first and not the library. So library right now, currently in the phase 1, it's in the common space. One of the things that we talked about is the possibility, of permanently leaving the library in the common space in both areas. And that's again a decision that can be made. But that just gives you flexibility in the number of classrooms. But as far as allocation of space, the allocation of the space for the library would be in this area. Does that answer your question, Shane?
Javier, is there some reason why you couldn't put the library on the second floor and finish, and then you wouldn't have to basically pay for doing that ground floor twice there on those 2 classrooms? I mean, is there any reason? Is there a reason why a library couldn't be on the second floor?
The grade level, well, if we keep the library for the little ones, the small library for the little ones in the phase 1, and we make this a library for the older kids, that would be fine.
Okay.
Because of the grade level, the little ones, ideally you don't want them to be going up the steps.
Correct.
The second level.
In operations, I'm not a librarian, obviously, but operations, you don't want to have 2 separate libraries to manage. It'd be nice to have it all one space, and this can all be discussed, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I see that all the options have the flex space, and we did the flex space in phase 1, and that's a nice thing. But if we're squeezing as much as we can into this project, phase 2, is squeezing that flex space out an option here to save some money?
Certainly. I mean, that's something that we can also look at. Yes. I don't have the calculation just what this flex space is in square footage, but that is certainly an option that we can look at to figure out, to squeeze some square footage out of it. And this is just preliminary. This is not, fully designed. This is just so we can, big scale talk about what we want to do. Let me go to option 3. Option 3, it was again after discussion with Judy. And what option 3 master plan allows us is it gives us 6 sections per grade level. It increases, it was 924, excuse me. It increases the capacity of the campus to 924. This would align better with the current number of students that you have, and would give you flexibility or the additional capacity for growth. But this again is a larger building than option 1 and 2. This option, what we did on this one is it was basically to have a first level finish and then the second level shell. And the project cost for something like this is similar to a full build out of the option 1. This one's 11,666. Option 4 is basically the same thing as option 3, with the difference that we would build a first and a second level complete, and this part of the building would be a future addition. The west part of the building would be the future addition of 12 classrooms in the future.
Is that built as a shell or not built at all?
Not built at all,
Okay.
but essentially it would give us that capacity of the maximum capacity of 924 students at the end. Initially, I mean, this number can be dialed as far as how many classrooms we build the first phase. But looking at this option, we're looking at a project cost of $9 million. But it doesn't in the initial phase, of course, will not be the complete elementary.
Javier, how hard would it be to get this one room upstairs with heating, air, and everything, and the rest of the upstairs be empty? I mean, what kind of cost is going to be there, and what efficiency or inefficiencies are we going to run into?
Carter, can you repeat your question again?
If we built that upstairs with just the one class or the 2 classrooms and all, what's the cost of that to actually have it aired and heated? And what are we going to be spending in addition just to get that, and the effect on the rest of the building up there not being maybe cooled and heated?
So each of these classrooms, the way the systems are designed, the classrooms are basically zoned separate, so they have their own AC units. And what you would build. Can you see my page, right?
Yeah.
We would build a wall at this location, so the rest of the area would be totally off limits. It would not be built. It would not be conditioned. Only what is needed here. That answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Javier, wouldn't we have to put at least some kind of minimal ventilation just to keep it from getting moldy
Yes.
up there?
Yeah, something. Yeah, just the minimal amount, so that it's not, stagnant air. But excuse me, but option 2B, this is taken. We probably have the stub outs for the plumbing. We probably have, roof curbs already in place for the roof. What we're talking about coming back and finishing would be interior walls, finishes, flooring, fixtures, and the AC units.
Would you estimate that cost to be to finish them out when it comes that time? I realize depends
so-
if it's a year from now or 5 years from now. but-
Correct. So what we're plugging in, it's about $100 in the future to finish it out. $100 a square foot.
All right.
But so what we're trying to do is figure out a way to allow you flexibility in packaging the bond package, right? And not necessarily put all the money into one project. But if that's the board's decision to just put all the money into finishing phase 2, then certainly, we can do that. But these different options give you a little bit of room to be able to package the bond package with other items.
Javier, how disruptive with adding a second story with kids below trying to have school and all that? I mean, I realize we can, partition it off and keep them out of there and everything, but I'm just thinking about noise, all of that overhead. What's your reaction to that?
Yes. So the plan of the unfinished second floor and the level of construction, it would be very light. And since it's a very short period of time that we need, we can certainly plan to do it. Maybe, we don't have a long summer, but certainly the metal stud portion of the construction would be the loudest because they have to anchor and drill. And so there would be a lot more noise during that period. After that, the noise would not be that bad. And,
Dr.
and we're
White,
thinking,
go ahead.
And we're thinking that the construction for that finish out is 3 months. So it can be done. And we could also do it, plan to do it after hours if we want to, and have the construction, happen after the kids are out of school and have them work a different schedule.
Dr. White, looking ahead, because if the bond passes, there's construction time before this school actually comes online. Are you able to say that all these options will provide us a united elementary school, or are some of these options going to continue to keep us in a elementary and then a secondary school that's separate?
Well, I want us to certainly plan ahead. And so just for board purposes, the new elementary, 13 of the 14 classrooms are filled. And so that's our pre-K through second grade. So it was about 250 kiddos. Right now, our intermediate grades 3, 4, and 5, 15 classrooms with about 580 kids. And so thinking about what that looks like. And if we have 5 vacant portables at the intermediate right now. And so thinking about just building it big enough so it's not full the day that we move in is one of the biggest challenges that I see.
So options 2A, 2B, options 3 and 4, they all start out with 10 or 12
right,
or 14 finished classrooms that are usable right from the start. And then we'd have to supplement already with some portables, sounds like, while we wait for these other classrooms to be finished out.
Yes.
Correct. Well, and space is always a premium, whether you're trying to, you've got the other spaces that are for your special ed, your other learning, your music, all those other types of classes. We are literally talking instructional grade level classrooms.
I think one of the biggest problems we have in this is we don't have a real good idea of how fast some of these subdivisions are going to go up. If they actually start going up pretty fast and we get a bunch of kids, we're past filling this up, and I think we would have to start talking about a second elementary somewhere as opposed to this one. How many students on an elementary is the max or normal or whatever, if you can plan it that way?
So we've been talking to Fluger about that, and the trend for elementary schools are between 800 and 1,000. They're trying to keep them, at around 800 or so students. But there are elementaries in other districts that are being built up to 1,200 students. Sean, you want to chime in?
Yeah. 800 to 900 seems to be most typical. And what that seems to be about really is economy of scale, that you know, if you have a very small elementary with 200 or 300 kids, you lose some efficiency. But when you get over 800 or 900, you seem to lose your economy of scale, start having to hire 2 of everything. And so you know, certainly elementaries get bigger than that, especially in growth areas where they have to keep adding portables. I don't think there's a reason you can't get to be 1,000 or 1,200. Parents often don't perceive that positively. They have a perception that a smaller school is better socially or educationally. And they might be right about that, but I'm not aware you could really prove that in a hard and fast way. So typically 800 or 900 is what most of the districts in the state tend to gravitate towards.
So Sean, around Texas, these growth districts we've seen lately that, you know, these subdivisions string up and just, you know, scatter all out around Houston or Austin or wherever, Dallas, Fort Worth, and, you know, north of Dallas there. Approximately how many rooftops does it take on average to create, you know, 800 students, 1,000 students, whatever?
Gosh, I couldn't tell you that. That varies. That varies quite a bit on the demographics. I mean, some areas have. It depends on whether the growth is a lot of households with young families and kids, or is it a little different income level that gets older families. I mean, that number's kind of all over the place. I couldn't tell you about rooftops.
Well, you know, from what I understand, the 2 right here by the school, Moe's and Bart's deals there, you know, supposedly some portion of those are supposed to be relatively affordable homes, which you think lends itself to, you know, younger families getting started buying that first home type stuff. So you would kind of assume then, I guess, that their likelihood of having elementary students is probably more likely than someone that's, you know, on their 3rd or 4th house now and pretty far up the food chain on their career or whatever, you know.
I believe that's right, and I've seen it many times. Build a new elementary, and new houses full of kids, new subdivisions have popped up all around it within a year. What was cotton fields is now houses. You know,
Yeah.
it's a selling point for realtors.
Correct.
Scott,
Yes, sir.
the land to the east of London just I guess just passed rezoning, and a good portion of it is going to be multifamily.
That's liable to bring even more students than we're
Yes.
thinking of.
Yeah, then all bets are off.
Well, back to Sean's and Javier's comment, both of you, you know, pack the kids in, then your day is driven by the cafeteria schedule or the PE schedule and some things like that rather than instruction. And so, Javier, the only other question I have for you at the moment is, you know, just in the drawing for drawing purposes, it looked like about 20 kiddos per class, and looking at the rooms and things. Do you remember what the square footage is of the, not pre-K, but just the regular standard, like a 2nd grade or a 1st grade room? Do you remember what the square footage is?
So most of the classrooms are somewhere between 750 and 800 square feet.
Just putting 6-year-olds in there versus 5th graders, you know,
Yeah.
requires a little more space. And so thinking about those, and then, you know, pre-K through, or K to 4, we've got the 22 to 1, and then 5th grade, it's not. I mean, we try to be reasonable, but like I said, just putting bigger bodies in makes a difference too.
So what we try to do is use a higher square footage so that you can use them for the younger kids as well as for the older kids. So the calculation for the typical classroom is basically created so that you have flexibility in the age groups. But and I think the number that we've been using for the maximum number of students in the classroom, I mean, really tight, is 22 students per classroom. But we really don't want to be at 22 in those classrooms. So in in square footage calculations, the classrooms are actually larger than what your established capacity is per classroom.
Right now, they're all drawn at 800 square feet, not counting the restrooms, which is the TEA standard for the younger kids. And actually, TEA their standard is a little bit smaller for older kids. You'd think it'd be the other way around, but I guess they figure they can tolerate crowding better. I don't know.
Right now, the TEA standard is 10 kids per class.
Well, yeah,
That's not working.
yeah.
I notice on these drawings, I don't see any sort of group restrooms. Only restrooms I see are those ones in the store, in the classrooms. I
Yeah.
think on the phase that's just, coming online right now, there's of course group restrooms by the cafeteria, which these would use that too. But I think, didn't you have a kind of a group restrooms even in the classroom wings?
Right. You
Go ahead,
could
John.
do that. You could do that either way. For simplicity, we just showed all the rooms the same, especially since you're stacking them. So it's kind of the district's choice at what age or what grade level do you go from the individual restrooms to the group restrooms. It's simpler for plumbing purposes to stack them if they're all identical, but we don't have to do it that way. So you could free up a little bit of square footage if you go to group restrooms. You don't free up a whole lot, not a whole extra classroom, but you might free up enough square footage for a small storage or teacher's workroom.
Okay. I mean, we don't see anything like that in any of this drawing either. Currently, the best I can
That's
tell.
correct.
Or am I missing it?
No, that's correct.
Okay. Other questions or comments?
How specific do we have to be for the bond election? I mean, we have to identify a dollar amount.
Basically
And-
it.
Okay. So
And a description of projects.
Yeah.
sure, but I guess that's what I'm getting at is how descriptive, because do we need to say here, as it's listed on this summary sheet, 10 classrooms, finished, 12 unfinished, that type of thing? Because like Javier mentioned, this is planning stuff here. And when we get into the detail design, whether or not we do group restrooms and whether or not we do away with the flex space will have a big impact on the cost. So I'm just curious as to what the best path forward is, that we could get something on the bond that everyone's the public's aware of, and yet knowing that there's going to be some flexibility during the design.
I think it would be something to affect, phase 2 of the elementary school buildings or something to that effect.
Right.
It'd be pretty generic as far as wording on a bond election.
But
Well, I appreciate-
encompassing enough if you wanted to do other projects, on the list of things that we've talked about, so that if you, in the off chance that you have extra funds left over or something like that, you have the freedom and flexibility
Yes.
to be able to do that.
And
Well,
you
it's
could,
nice-
we could put a bunch of that stuff on there, the
Right.
parking lots, tennis courts, et cetera, and it's all kind of how far the money runs out,
Exactly.
So,
Yeah, and that worked out well for us last time, I think. And the other thing that worked out, well, I guess it was the same thing. We did additive alternates,
Correct.
and we got bid for items, and we were able to find money for the band hall, for example, last time, even though we didn't actually have money for it, but there was money available. And because we had the additive alternate. So would we incorporate that same approach here?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Well, and then Mr. Torno, back to your comment, when we go out and talk to people, that's when you get into specifics of what the planning looks like and the possibilities and those details that have been covered. So Jerry, the other day on the phone, you and I talked about kind of what the market is doing, other things that you all are seeing, kind of the trends of what's going on. Any thoughts for the board this evening in that regard?
Hang on, he's muted.
Jerry doesn't want to talk to us.
No, he's muted. Hang on.
He-
Jerry, you're muted.
We
Yeah,
had a
cool.
really good conversation, and I wanted him to share some of the highlights with you as far as, what you all are seeing with it being,
You're
all the
muted,
things that
Jerry.
have happened.
No.
Jerry and Javier, you're out on a private yacht. You can see
Obviously.
behind Javier there. Yeah, on their yacht today. Must be nice.
Yeah.
Approximately how many students in the elementary are transfer students?
I'd have to go back and look and see what it's running right now. We have that data to be able to do that. Right now, I've been focusing on total enrollment and working with administrators to know whether or not we needed to add the extra sections.
Okay, Jerry.
I'm here now. Yeah, anyway. So we've seen a couple different things. The first thing is we've heard general contractors share with us that they've seen costs maybe go down somewhere around 5%. Now, we haven't been able to really identify that, specifically, but that's what we're hearing. The other thing that we're hearing from them is that they're getting a lot of participation from subcontractors, which is good, not only in the general area, but also in maybe the South Texas region. So those two things are happening. The third thing, though, that we're hearing a little bit about is because of some of the uncertainty about COVID and how you have to do that and work through that during the construction process, is it may extend the construction time slightly, several months, depending on the entire thing, just because of delivery of materials and just the working and doing the social distancing and different things that we're going through right now. So it's just something to be aware of as we think about it. We know that hopefully, some of these things maybe sometime earlier, middle part of next year might, be solved and we'll get back to a little bit maybe more normal type of construction process. But at least for right now, we just need to be mindful of those things.
Okay. Would we guesstimate our transfers are 20%?
No, it's going to be higher than that.
Even if you take out like employee children, no, it'd still be higher.
No,
than
no,
that.
if you took out employee, no. And that's a significant number. And the other thing that we incorporated into the application process was if you have a viable contract with one of the builders, we would rather take you at the beginning of the year than have to scramble it at mid-year. And so run all those numbers for you as well.
Just trying to get some idea of how many students, if you needed or had to start, I don't mean this school year, but, in future years, either not accepting anymore and or
Right.
actually revoking some, how many seats would that clear, free up for in-district students so that, at some point we get this number to kind of match what we got built, at least for a little while. So that's what I was wondering there. Other questions about the additions? None. Everybody's been
What's the next step for getting something on the ballot?
Basically voting on putting it on the ballot, basically. I think we have till sometime in August.
Yeah,
I think it is to decide that.
August 17th.
Yes.
Okay.
It has to be approved by then with the specific language, all of that. So Victor will work with us, if you guys can define the direction you want to go, then he will help and work with us on the wording and all of that, but it has to be approved by the 17th, which is a Monday.
And that's sounds like a ways off, but that's not very far away.
It is not far at all.
No.
No, I appreciate this information. This is helpful for me to kind of get my head around some options here. So I appreciate you guys doing this.
Certainly.
Any other questions for Jerry, Javier, and Sean? I don't hear anybody, so I'm assuming everybody's good. If that's the case, we'll move on to notification of employment of professional personnel.
All right, in your packet, you have a list on page 30 of individuals. And when the packet went out on Friday, we were fully staffed. We have had one that could not get out of her contract. So that first listing for a 6th grade science teacher, she had never signed her contract, even though employment had been offered, but the other 3 are on board. So we will monitor that and see with changes and things what that looks like. The only other thing that's really lacking is an LVN position. So I think you're going to be very pleased, very impressed with the quality of new hires and what they bring to London ISD. We did some meetings and things with them last week, and it's a really outstanding group of people. So.
All right. All right, move on to the November 3rd trustee election.
You have information on page 35 of your packet to include a timeline of some of the things that we have already talked about. And so to hit highlights, this is truly just the trustee election, but it coincides with bond election because of the August 17th deadline. And so last Saturday, the 18th, was first day to file for a place on the general election ballot, keeping in mind we have 4 spots up. Today was the first official day in the office. There's a lot of information posted on our website, so under the Board of Trustee tab, so I encourage you to go and look at that. So you see the timeline, last day to order general election, that's the trustee election, as well as any bond election. That is also the last day to file for a place on the ballot at 5 p.m. for the trustee election. And after that, you see dates as far as registering to vote, personal appearance, ballot by mail, and so on, all leading up to the general election on Tuesday, November the 3rd.
Okay, you had expressed an interest of having a session or a meeting or something for prospective
Yes,
candidates to fill them in on duties, responsibilities, that sort of thing.
I am, and I need to truly look at a calendar and find a time, but I would really like to partner and do a trustee candidate information session and really spend some time with anyone that's interested in attending, and maybe a couple of you that are not running this year, to really just talk about the role and responsibility, the time commitment, the types of things that you all as trustees do in your role. And so I just think that's time very, very well spent. So I wanted to throw that out there and just see what you all thought, and think, you know, people sometimes are interested, but they don't know what all it entails. And I think that would be a block of time very well spent between now and August the 17th.
All right, do you have an idea of possibly when, or you get
I
a
was
little
kinda
closer to
looking
that
at-
17th, or?
Yes, sir. I was kind of looking at possibly maybe the first or week in August or so. So I hadn't really looked beyond next week, knowing that we need to meet again on the 27th. So.
Okay. I think it,
And probably about an
good
hour
idea.
long. Like I said, there's some really good resources that we can provide. There's some really good things that have been added to the website that are, you know, our starting point. But I just think having that conversation is invaluable, and for them hearing it firsthand from you all that have walked in those shoes, what that looks like, what the responsibility is, what the role truly is with regard to trustees and the relationship and everything. So if you all think it's a good idea, I will try to find a date and get on that little project.
all right. Anybody have any comments or questions?
I think that'd be a great idea. I think, you know, it entails more than people know, I think, and time consuming. I think we ought to inform them.
Okay.
Anyone else? All right, I think I would concur with what Gail said. I think it'd be a good idea. So probably ought to see if we can pull that off and try to do it. I certainly don't think it'll hurt anything.
All right. I'll get busy on that and communicate some dates. And like I said, having you all there too to just communicate your experiences and the learning curve and all those things, I think is truly invaluable, more than me telling them what, you know, my perspective is a little different than yours. So.
All right, any other comments or questions about the trustee election?
No, sir.
Most folks are shaking their head like they're good. So, all right, we'll move on to item 5, ratification of the June invoices. We all have those. So questions or comments about the invoices for June? Does anybody have any? No questions or comments about the bills list? Everybody's being very quiet. If there are no questions, would there be a motion to accept or ratify those as presented?
So moved.
All right, Gail moved. Is there a second? I'm sorry, was that
I'll
Andrea?
second.
Donna, I think Donna seconded. So was the first one too that I believe. So Gail moved and Donna seconded to ratify the June invoices as presented. All those in favor, would you say aye or raise your hand for the screen?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right, and I believe those who don't want to do that was more than majority already. I see no votes, so that motion passes. All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda items, budget amendments. Who's going to talk budget amendments? Vicky here? Or... There she comes.
I am here.
All right, go for it, Vicky.
All right. Your background information indicates that budget amendments are required to take $127,000, $127,500 from fund balance. Most of this is for purchases of technology, COVID supplies, new curriculums and instructional supplies, communications, HR software. A lot of it has to do with, of course, COVID expenses and things that we're doing for the online learning and safety and cleaning and those kind of things. We also are setting up a new Fund 266, which is accounting for our CARES Fund revenue. You know, Dr. Judy talked to you guys about how that's actually being supplanted from our state revenue. It's not really new money at this point. We are getting, hopefully getting some new funds to reimburse some of the technology and distance learning stuff that we're doing right now and that we have already spent. But we do have to have this new Fund 266 to account for those items. Is about $50,000 that we're accounting for in that little fund. We're also reclassifying 7,000 from function 51 plant maintenance to function 81 facilities acquisition and construction to cover some gym concession furniture and equipment there. Our unreserved fund balance will be reduced by 127.5, and then we're adding revenue and expenses in Fund 266. That amount for Fund 266 is $53,000.
Okay, so what we're hearing from the state about how they've put all this money, up 200 million, 500 million, whatever it was aside, that's, you say that we're not, that actually not anything being set aside different right now. It's just sort of reallocating what was already allocated to us. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they are taking it from our state funds is what they're doing. They're lowering our state funds and they're pushing it over there into that fund. It's a shell game. But we are supposed to get some new money coming in that they started talking about Friday for some reimbursements.
Okay, so there may be actually some new funds there out of the rainy
Yes.
day fund or something. Okay.
We're hoping.
I was hoping to try that with my creditors to see if I could just pay them
Yeah,
something and
move
claim
it
it.
around, right?
It was what I was going to pay you over here, but I'm going to pay it here now. See if I get away with that and claim it as credit for both
Yeah.
sides. All right. Other questions or comments about the budget amendments? Everybody understand what we're doing mostly? We knew we would be hit for some of this going forward. All this happening so fast. I don't think it's a surprise to anyone that we're dinging our fund balance a little bit to do some of this for at least temporarily, and hopefully the state will, or the feds will reimburse us for some of that. Any other questions? If there are none, is there a motion to amend the budget as presented?
So moved.
Gail made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Andrea seconds the motion. Any further discussion? All those for budget, amending the budget as presented, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
All right, all opposed? Ayes have it. The motion carries. All right, we'll look down at our minutes from the June 8th regular meeting and June 25th called meeting, special called. Is there any additions or corrections to those minutes? All of you should have had those by now, I think. Any additions or corrections to June 8th or June 25th? I see a couple of heads nodding no. Is there a motion then to accept them as presented?
Also move.
Andrea moves. Is there a second?
Second.
I'll say,
Okay, looks like Carter seconded. So all those in favor of pass to approve the minutes of June 8th and June 25th as presented, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
aye, aye.
Okay, all opposed? That motion carries. All right, looks like certified appraisers for T-test evaluation system. Dr. Whitus?
Yes, sir. The next two items deal with our T-test evaluation system. So every year we present, these are both annual formalities, and so a list of appraisers. You will see it's mostly principals with some outside non-campus district staff, because individuals can request by policy alternate appraisals in certain situations. And so on page 61, you have a list of individuals who've been through the proper training. Certainly is incumbent upon us to set those standards, communicate, outline what we're looking for in classrooms, provide the details that go along with that, but these individuals meet the criteria of being an appraiser in a Texas public school district. So,
And that's just an informational for us, or does that
I do
require
need
us
you to act on it, even though it's a formality, I do need you
to approve the appraisers and the calendar, or just the appraisers?
both.
Okay.
Knowing that the calendar could change again.
All right.
But both of those require your blessing.
Okay. So everyone sees the list of appraisers. Let me see, I was looking at the list earlier. It's basically principals and a couple of department heads, plus the calendar before you there. Is everybody good with that? Everybody see it? Understand? Any questions or comments? If there are none, is there a motion to adopt the T-tests evaluation system appraisers and calendar?
I'll motion.
Okay, Nathan made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Andrea seconds. So it's been moved and seconded to approve the T-test evaluation system calendar and appraisers. All those in favor? Raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. So we did it. That got D also, right? The system
Yes, sir.
and, okay, so we did both those. The TIPS co-op.
Also a formality, and we use buy board, we use other purchasing co-ops to help with, so we have to do some of the bidding process and things. So this is an available co-op that offers an extensive list that we can procure goods and things. It's operated out of Region 8, and so we felt like it would be a good addition to what we have. And so it also requires, again, a formality of approval from the board, but it opens up some purchasing options for us from different vendors that may not be on one of the co-ops or one of the suppliers that we currently have.
But we are in an agreement with several other, or at least a couple other buy board type
Yes, sir.
co-ops already. Just another one.
Helps us with bidding and things. So
Okay.
not to have to, they do the work for us basically. So
I think most of us are pretty familiar with the co-ops that basically get bids for various school-related items from various vendors and then offer those out to their members. We use them. Sometimes we can buy cheaper that way and better that way, and sometimes we don't. But it's out there for the schools and other state agencies. So, any other questions or comments about the TIPS cooperative agreement? If there are none, then I'll take a motion to allow the superintendent to enter into that agreement. Is that what we're doing?
yes, sir.
Okay. Is there a motion to enter into the TIPS co-op agreement?
So moved.
Gail made the motion. Carter re-seconding.
Second.
Carter seconded. So any further discussion? Don't see any. All those in favor of entering the TIPS co-op agreement, raise your hand, say aye.
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 Opposed? See no opposed. All those, the ayes have it. The motion carries. All right, public participation. Shane, did you get any public participants this time?
No, sir. There were no signups for the public participation.
All right. We have on here to adjourn to executive session. Is there a need for that this time?
No, sir.
I wasn't aware of one either. So, all right. So items 8 and 9, we pretty well take care of. Future agenda items, other than possibly having a candidate orientation, we kind of talked about already. Anything else anybody has?
Just wanted to verify with you that we can at least have a quorum present for next Monday night. It's set for 6:30. We have to do the hearing. And one thing I put in your board update, I have initial findings from our review of our TASB pay plan. And so I contacted the consultant today to see if it was possible for her to provide you all an overview next Monday night, realizing that it would probably be 7:15 or 7:30, and I have not heard back from her, but wanted to throw that out there and see how your schedules were for maybe getting both of those things accomplished.
What was the second item?
It's the TASB, it's a review. We've been doing a salary study for the past several months. We sent a lot of data to TASB to develop some pay scales where we don't have them. And so they've got an analysis for us, and they do a presentation with trustees to help you and also help you make some decisions with regard to pay raises, things like that. So I did about a 2.5-hour session with them the other day. Yours would not be near that long, but we need to get that going because looking at the calendar, August 17th is coming very fast. We've got budget to work on, pays, all of those kinds of things. So pretty much we're going to be seeing each other quite a bit in the coming weeks. So.
Will that meeting be a Zoom meeting, or is it going to be person to person in face?
I think from here on out, we are asking teachers to step up and do remote. I think we need to model that for them. We're not, we're very scaled down with our people on campus and things. And so I think until there's some things change and our numbers drop and all of that, I think we need to continue with remote unless you all tell me otherwise.
Will that hearing is the complainant or whatever the right word is, requesting that be done in an open session, or are they requesting that be done? Because that can be done in a closed session.
It should be in a closed session, but most likely it will be via telephone. So you all, or Zoom, depending on, so right now I just have it as a placeholder on the night of the 27th, and then to work on the details after tonight, after you all give me some direction.
Okay. All right. Personally, I would, I would like, if we're going to get together, let's, whether it be in person or Zoom or however we do it, if we got some more ground to cover, let's try to do that, because we got, there's a lot on the plate right now and going to be more coming up. So I'm not so sure we don't need to do a little more discussion and maybe try to flesh out a few more details on what we kind of think the growth's going to be and the need on this bond election before we actually take a vote on that. We may want to have a little discussion about that too.
I agree. I think we do need some more discussion on that.
Any other potential agenda items? All right. If something comes up, you guys know how to go about working and putting some on an agenda, so we can sure do it. All right. If there is no other action or future agenda items, anything we missed, then I guess we're ready for a motion to adjourn. Does anybody have a motion to adjourn? Y'all want to sit here for a while?
Also move.
I'll second it.
Okay. Andrea moves, and I think Nathan seconded the motion to adjourn. All those in favor, say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all very much.